Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another fun little ROMHack streaming kind of deal. I'm your pal slowbeef. We are doing some Dead of the Brain, but I know what some of you want to see, and you want to see progress. I have a lot I want to go over conceptually because I think we kind of rushed into assembly programming. And where to begin? Well, first things first. As far as text extractors go, it turns out not only did QCR write one, so did DrasticActions, and he actually went ahead and wrote a text inserter. We know that dialog boxes start with BA23 and have the control code that ends with BA26. Well, Drastic wrote a program that basically recreates the MES file. I'm assuming it swallows the same header. He didn't do anything with that, but then he just started creating dialog boxes based on a translation file. He even experimented with making completely new ones should the need arise, like if we don't have enough text. So he made a whole new FDI file for it, so what the hell, we'll copy it in. Normally, you could just take the MES file and drag it to disk extractor to reinsert it into the file, so we'll be using that, I guess, right? So that'll be cool. We'll give it a shot. We'll see if we can see some English. We'll see if it works. And the other thing we're probably going to do is, I want to make mention of that where is it? So it turns out the person who wrote the debugging emulator branch of Neko Project 2 has been watching this stream, saw the issues that we had with the debugger last time. It turned out the reason it jumped like that is because it responded to a hardware interrupt. So something happened there. Oops, let me lower the volume of that a bit. Let's go to a nice 14, which should do it. Let's go to 1280 by 800 so you can all see it. So let's see how Drastic did. Whoops, I'm in the wrong directory. We'll put in his Dead of the Brain 1. He also got the game running off a hard drive, so you could attach a SCSI drive apparently to it and just run it that way, and we won't have to keep switching disks. We'll try that in a bit at some point. So let's see how we did. Font looks different, so I'm thinking the emulator. So yeah, one thing we were looking at was font files and such. Like a save state, why not? Let's see how it works. Very nice. The blitting sound effect is going on. So what happens to, you're going to find Japanese doesn't really do line breaks, so you kind of can get around it with spaces. Seems slow, says Anonymous Jerkbag. Yeah, it does, actually, so that's actually not at all Drastic's fault or anything like that. That's just the game, not expecting, yeah. Not expecting to print so much. Message speed. High speed, good. So let's do that. One thing you'll notice, by the way, too, is there we go. So Japanese also tends to run wide, so a lot of these games have fixed width fonts, which is why, like, there's so much space between these lowercase L's. We have more vertical characters in English. Japanese has a queue, but just not so many, so they don't. A lot of these games don't really even care about that. I could attempt to do it. So, Orin run into the original translation. I kind of did some edits to it. This is sort of a jokey kind of script. Don't worry, it's not the real thing, but. Shadowdog's not really bothered by fixed width fonts. Unfortunately, the PC98's using the system font. That is, Dead of the Brain is not does not have a font file on board. It's using the system one, which means... Oh, I lost my ability to draw. Yeah, it was funny, there was like a little miscommunication Drastic and I had, and Oren, where it was like, Oren's like, well, slowbeef really wants variable with fonts, and I'm like, I don't want him. Like, that's fucking a lot of work. I think Drastic wanted him, and Drastic's like, I didn't want him. It was like, oh, okay. Anyway, we'll have to proofread that. Yep. I added that. All right. So this is pretty cool, right? We got stuff going. We got pretty lucky with Dead of the Brain. This is all like a linear series of text to replace. I can go over a text extractor some other time maybe, but we'll go through the beginning. Why not? Before we get into stuff. What time it is? That's interesting. It didn't do why are you calling so late? I asked Oren about this. Oren Ronin's gonna do maybe a translation stream, actually, where he talks about Japanese and why he translated certain things. Cougar does, in fact, say a thing. He says, you'll fall right down the stairs. And I asked Oren, is that like an idiom in Japan or something? Because if it is, I've never heard it. So I think it's Cougar's weird way of talking. Cougar comes across very awkward. But so I changed it to fall right out of your stairs instead of down the stairs. It felt sillier, but like in a funny way, maybe? I don't know. Shadhog, we're not using the exact same number of text boxes. In fact, DrasticActions figured out how to insert more. This is also a line I made. He says something like, this time I assure you it's amazing. Like, I think he said something like, even you'll be astounded by it. But, or like, it's different this time, but I added the thing about the blood. I think Drastic transliterated this maybe, like directly into with the script. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I wrote oh, that's right. He couldn't do apostrophes. We'll have to figure that out at some point. Key that secret. Oh boy. Oh boy. Nah, I'm fucking with it. This is kind of amazing that he did this, honestly. Super genius. No, there is no link to the Japanese script. He had to extract it from the ROM. So that's a good question, Girga asked. Is it cougar, C-O-O-G-R, and not cougar like the animal? Talward Oren only did the first file, open1.mes. You'll see where it ends about. So the game seems to think that it's Cooger. This could be a translation error. Maybe it's supposed to be cougar, spelled like it in the, people didn't speak English well enough to know that. When I talked to Mark Laidlaw, not the Valve guy, during Police Knots, and we talked about doing this game, he was actually for keeping it cougar, Cooger. I kind of forget the reasons why. Another thing he told me, by the way, is like, you're going to have to take creative liberties later, with the script, trust me. So I'm kind of interested to see what he means by that. Oh. Ah, okay. If you're wondering now, why are these in English? Yet this is in Japanese. If you remember, the name tags are a control code. So Drastic was able to do that. Anyway. Here. So that's some progress, right? Not too bad. I have Visual Studio Express. I haven't played with it. Maybe I'll play with Drastic's code a bit, see if we can do some things. But excuse me. At any rate, so last time we went into assembly, right? Set a memory breakpoint. Kind of went in there, and you might be wondering why. Here's the deal. For these files, these intro files, open 1 MES, open 2 MES, it's really linear, and in fact, it's so linear that they just put the text one right after the other. However, I have the feeling this is going to change for action scenes. Whoops. How do I zoom in here? Let's try control numpad. So I want to show you something. Because it's serial, we see... I'll exclude the control codes. We'll see something like... You'll be so amazed. You'll fall. And then right after it, you'll get something like, it's late, Doc. Or whatever he says, right? And the game just goes, I'll print this sentence, hit a control code, I'll stop. Hit another control code, start a new dialog box, print this sentence, stop, right? There are action sequences in the game, by the way, but I'm not talking about that. I mean when control is actually given to the player, and we use these really weird verbs like use and talk and look. Because what happens now, let's say I click look at cougar and the game prints something like well, it'll print in Japanese, so I'll say Nihongo something, right? And then we talk to cougar, let's say, and cougar says Japan, 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 right? Now, odds are these text strings are going to be next to each other with control codes, just like in the intro, but the game's not going to read them linearly. It's going to figure out a way to say, well, if I talk to cougar first, I'm going to have to print this sentence, and if I look at cougar, I'm going to have to print this sentence. The way this normally works is there's a thing called a text pointer. Now, they're called text pointers, right? So maybe in the actual memory, let's see. Okay. So maybe in our hex editor, it'll kind of look like this, right? And just pretend the quotes here are control codes that say when a thing begins and ends, right? Okay. So sentence 1 starts at 0, 0. Okay. Yep. This is just to mark off. 0, 0. Sentence 2 starts around here, which is 9, 19. Okay. The idea is that there's some programming logic that says when the player looks at cougar, or when the player has the look verb selected and clicks on the hitbox surrounding cougar, I'm going to display 0, 0, which means I'm going to go look here and take 0 and just print until I hit the control code. But if the player talks to cougar, instead I'm going to jump to 19, which is here, and print that sentence instead. Okay? Clear so far, I hope? Now, remember that the reason it's doing this is because this is dynamic text. It's not going to appear one after the other. It's going to appear when the player does certain things. Okay? Now, here's the problem. We're going to translate this to English, aren't we? So, just real quick. Remember, it's at 0, 0, and 19. In fact, let's just recreate this just so we have a scratch pad to work with. All right, now I looked at Doc, and Cole says, "It's Doc, my friend." And we talked to Doc, and he says, "I know I seem arrogant, but it's because I can't relate to people." In fact, let me just make sure I don't have an embarrassing thing where it just happens to be the same one. "It's Doc, my friend. We've known each other for a long time." Now, this looks like I'm making a joke, but I will say, not as a rule, but generally, English does run longer than Japanese, especially because of the kanji and stuff. You can fit whole ideographs. That makes me want to curl up into a ball and die. Oh, I hate pointers, he's saying. Pointers are just numbers. Alright, so D-E-E... Wait. C. D-E-F. Okay. So... space it out. Yeah, we'll be fine. By the way, just from what I've seen in the script, that is actually what I think of Doc, because he says things to Cole like, even someone like you can understand this, and I don't think he's trying to be a dick. Because I was thinking too, like, why would Cole be friends with this guy? It's like a Marty McFly Doc relationship, but Doc Brown was kind of like that to Marty. Not on purpose. Marty wasn't particularly super bright, but, like, I think it was just sort of like he felt like, oh, I have this genius gift to give to people. I gotta talk down to them. Not to be like, because I'm so smart, but it's just like, I want people to understand me and I don't know how to do it kind of thing. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting off base here. The point is, let's say we replace this text just as is and we leave it all alone. Now when we look at Doc, we go to text 0, 0, we print to the control code, everything's fine. But when we go to talk to Doc, it's going to look at 1, 9, which means it's going to print... Well, first of all, it might not even see a control code, which means it might not print anything. But it might also just start printing period, we've known each other for a long time, and then end. So it won't even print the correct sentence at all. And the reason is because English has run longer, we've pushed out where the second sentence starts from. And you can imagine in a text file, there's very many sentences like this. This kind of works like an index in a book, where if you have like a reference book or something and you go to the index, if you were to translate a reference book from one language to another, all the text would shift around, and that means the page numbers would have to be updated the same way too. These are called text pointers, and that we usually have to be cognizant of them when we change text in like the video game sections of the game. Drastic went ahead and he said he did this and didn't run into any issues. It's possible that he was using strings like test1, but then again, that would push back this, which would still be wrong. So I don't know. Maybe Dead of the Brain does something totally different that's going to make our lives a ton easier or whatever, So, so the question is, why do you, or how do you find text pointers and all? And one of the things you can do, as we did last time, is you can set a breakpoint at memory here, look at the instructions the game is using, and try to work backwards and figure out how it got to this location to begin with, where it read that memory location from. And when you do that, you'll eventually see something that's like some pointer that's here, that's something else added a number to, and when you see those numbers and you find them in the data, you know you're looking at text pointers, and then your script rewriter, the thing that translated it, has to keep track of these text pointers, and depending on how long the new English string is, it has to remember to update these correctly, so that such that like 19 would now become 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4. If you don't change text pointers, then all your sentences like will start in the middle, end early, or not even draw to begin with. Usually your first sentence is okay, but nothing after. Super genius. Slowbeef said that the text was all on its own file. Yes. No. It only loads the text for a particular scene. The scene we're in is a file called open_1.mes. But around the time that the cop gets there, right in the middle of their conversation, actually, it'll switch to another one called blanking open2.mes. It was stupid of me. Anyway, we jumped into assembly last time, but that's one of the reasons you need assembly, is just to read it and just figure out where it's getting all these things from. Okay. The other reason, of course, is if there's something the game is doing that is preventing it from printing English correctly, you might have to reprogram the game a little. And that means you're going to have to write code in assembly. So, yep. That is my face, says Megastructure. So, hopefully, that was kind of clear. I'm lost. Let's see here. Should I go over? Trying to think how I should rephrase it. If maybe the hex is throwing it, it's like okay. Another way to look at it, you got to make sure the combined total of the new text doesn't overrun into other data. Not just that. That is a concern, but it's more that, like, yeah, maybe the hex dispute throwing people off. Let me try it this way. Okay. Do you see these line numbers here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 10 and beyond, obviously. Let's say I can only type up to here, right? I'm writing the original Japanese script for this game, and I say, okay. And if we talk to Cougar, he's going to say that, right? And then we have another sentence that's like, Ohio. Oh, wait, that's gozaimasu. And then, taku wa toku toru desu yo. Alright. I have 3 sentences here, okay? These quotes signify when the dialogue box starts and ends. Alright? Alright. Actually, and I'm going to break it up by line. So somewhere in the game, there's computer programming that says, if, I don't know, player talks to doc. We'll print line 1, okay? Print line 1. If player, I don't know, uses doc, print line 2. If player looks at doc. it would actually be like this, but I mean, this is fake code anyway, but whatever. So there's code in the game, probably like written by some scripting language or something. Oh, whoops, print line 3, print line 4. Then if player, what else can I do? Dot moves doc print line 6. Oops. 6. Okay. So this is all dynamic text. I don't want to just print it dialog box after dialog box. I'm waiting for player input before I print something. I show them something, right? So let's say if I look at doc, I don't want to print line 1, line 2, line 3. I want to print line 4, okay? Just that's what this instruction says here. Same thing, if I move doc, I want to print from line 6, okay? This works fine for Japanese. Now, let's just say, though, I don't want to change the actual code the game is written in, because that's really hard. But I'm going to start writing this in English, and again, just assuming I can only write up to here. So when I talk to Doc, instead of this, Doc's going to say, thanks a lot, Cole. Sometimes it gets shorter. And then when I use Doc, he's going to say, good morning, pal. How are you doing today? I am well. You look at Doc, he'll just do ... and then that. Okay. Now you can see this code no longer works, right? If you talk to Doc, things still work fine because it's still line 1. But now if player uses Doc, we're going to go to line 3. So instead of printing correctly, good morning, pal, how are you today? It's going to print, are you doing today? I am well. If the player looks at Doc, now it's going to print line 4 and say, am well, okay? So the thing is that there's things in the script that in the game that tell the script, start reading from here. So when you make your new English file, or your new file that creates English, that is, your open1.mes or whatever, you need to update these numbers so that they're now accurate. So you'll have to change this 3 to a 2. You'll have to change this 1 to a 5. So hopefully that makes more sense. And the only way you're going to find this, well, not the only way, but the one way you're going to find that is by going through to set breakpoints on the assembly and follow the code back to see where it gets these line numbers on from the beginning. Better? Anonymous jerkbag. Can the text be so long it breaches into another line code? Oops. Yes, it absolutely can. And in fact, that's a concern. So you can see the problem here is if your text area gets too large, your data area, yeah, you can totally run over other data you're not expecting to. You can totally write over code, which will just crash things and fuck things up. Yeah, that's a problem. And that's where ROM hacking gets tricky. However, I want you to keep in mind, this works both ways. And one really cool thing you can do is if there's a lot of data or something you know the game's not using or you're not going to be using anymore, you can write directly over that and use that instead. In fact, most ROM hackers, when they're writing their own assembly, they actually write it straight over the kanji in the font file because they know the font file is always going to be available in one place, and we're not going to use kanji in an English ROMHack, so they just write code right over it. That's actually where I put my code in Police Knots. So yeah. What do you call it? Game Kiwi. Overflow stuff is fun. That's not overflow, my friend. That's just drawing over data like a jerk. We could talk about what overflow is. Tell you what, though. Let's get into a little assembly. Tiny bit. Just so we explain what we're doing. At the end of the day, computers run binary instructions. And what happens is... I know you know what you meant for Game Kiwi. Maybe. Do you do this for work? I kind of wish I did. I don't. I do higher level languages. But I like assembly, honestly. It's fun. I like ROM hacking in general. I wish there was a job for it. Look. This is an instruction, and the way it works is just like the finite state machine I showed you before. Depending on this changes from architecture to architecture, by the way. So this code, how do I explain this? Okay. All right. So let's take a fairly simple computer programming source code, right? We'll just say it's x equals 5, or no, x equals x plus 1, right? This is human readable code. No computer in the world is going to know what to do with this, really. What has to happen is you have a computer program called a compiler that turns this into binary opcodes that the processor can run. So let's see. So what's an example of this? Okay. First of all, you don't get variables in assembly. You get these things called registers. In the case of x86, we have 4 registers called EAX, EBX, ECX, and EDX. Right? These are just little bits of onboard storage. I think they're 16 or 32 bits each. Wait. Yeah, 32 bits each. So the computer just has them available, and they're going to store numbers. And computer programs are going to use these numbers. Okay? We'll just make them 16-bit for now, because I don't feel like writing a lot. Copy, paste. Okay. I did MIPS assembly in college, by the way, which was very lucky, because that's what the PlayStation uses, it just turns out. But this is x86. Alright. Alright, they're 32 bits, so fuck it. Now, 4 variables is a really tiny number to work with, but there's tricks you can do. But either way, so what's going to happen is compiler is going to look at this and say, all right, this person wants a variable. Do I need to allocate a memory for them, or can I just use a register? Maybe I'll just use a register. And I have EAX available. Now, one nice thing about MIPS assembly, by the way, is they actually give you parts of registers, too. For example, AX, not EAX, mind you, is the lower 16 bytes of EAX. Like so. They also give you... I'll put it here. They also give you parts of AX to deal with, if you'd like. Called AH for A high. It's high. And it's weird to draw on the screen and do that. AL, right? I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit. But the point is that back in the day, you didn't have EAX. You had, like, AX. And it was just this. And then later, as the processors got better, they made them 32-bit registers and said, now you can call them EAX in assembly. Okay? So anyway, what was I saying? So int x equals 5. So what you could do is the compiler turns this into an instruction like... I'm not big on x86 yet. I'm still kind of learning it. But you could do something like move AX 5 hexadecimal, right? And this maps to a binary instruction that the processor can run. Okay? Killer MC 64-bit, they call it RAX, RBX, RCX, and RDX. I don't know what the R stands for. But anyway, that'll change this to the state of the register to 101, okay? Or it's like that, actually. Whatever. Next one we have is x equals x plus 1. Well, computers are good at adding things, at least, so there's... Oh, I shouldn't have picked that. Whatever. We'll just call it x equals 1. Anyway, so what it can do is it knows x refers to AX register, so it could do something like add I AX, if you don't get this part, by the way, don't worry too much. You really need to dig into assembly to get it. This is the point I'm trying to make is compilers take your human readable easy code and turn them into this crap. Which, like this add immediate says, take this register operand plus this real number, put the answer into this register ultimately. You could also have something like, so that would increment the register by 1. MIPS or x86 also, for example, has an instruction called INC, increment AX, which will do exactly the same thing as this. This is just a convenience kind of thing that the processor knows how to run and do. So the thing about assembly is more or less like something like a programming language with like no syntactic sugar, no tools. Some processors, like you can add, you can subtract, you can multiply, etc., right? So like that's kind of it. If you want to take a square root of a register, good fucking luck, because you're going to be writing the actual mathematical formula in like subtractions and bit shift and all sorts of stuff. I don't even know how you do that, actually. But there's tricks you can do. There's all sorts of interesting things, and a lot of them are bitwise operations. Now, I told you that you could refer to, let's say, this part of the register with AH, or this part with AL, or the whole thing with AX, or the whole thing with EAX. You might not need a 32-bit number for things. So maybe you want to store a 5 and a 6. Remember, we only have 4 registers to work with, so we might have to get a little creative. So let's take some new code. Well, I increment. Oh, you know what? And we'll pretend we're actually running it. So I incremented AX, so that'll go up by 1. All right. Here's a trick. I want to store 2 numbers, but in 1 register. All right, yeah, here we go. I want to store another number in AX. Any idea how I could? I want to use They can be small. Yeah, let's do that. Mikey Pro 83 says use AH for 1 and use AL for another. Good. Do me a favor. Tell me how I'd put 3 into AH. I know why. I know why professors do this, because it's like you want to make sure. It's not because I don't care if you're paying attention. Obviously, you leave the stream, but I am curious if I'm being clear or not. All right, I'll just tell you. I mean, it's just, I'm getting ridiculous now. There's a few ways to do this. If let's say we wanted to add 3. Oh, Mini Maxer said something interesting too. All right, but let's say I want to put 3 into AH. No, EpiM, admit it, you're doing it to make us, it's funny to make us squirm. You don't have to squirm. I'm not grading you. I can't do anything if you don't know the answer. I'm just doing it just to make sure I'm being clear or something. There we go. CFS02 says, can you directly move AH003? No, yep, you're absolutely right. You can move AH 0x003. That'll totally work. I'm sorry, I did one thing wrong. Or maybe not. We'll see. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Excuse me. What is 3? Yep. Alright. Cool, yeah. Now, here's the thing. AL is equal to 7. Because you count in binary, like 1 plus 2 plus 4 is 7. AH is 3. But funny property now is that if I can also take the whole number together, AX, and get 7. Uh-oh. I can do it in hex. I get hexadecimal 060307, which, where's calculator? What is that? Let's go to hex. 775. Is that true? 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256 plus 512. Yep, that is. AX is 775. That seems ridiculous. How is that possible, you say? Because remember, AH is only this. AL is over this. But these are power of 2 numbers. But, what do you call it? But like taken together, this whole number, I mean, it gets pretty big, you know? It goes up to 2 to the power of 16. So I think the highest number this can make is 65,535, if I'm remembering correctly. It sounds about right. By the way, fun fact. An 8-bit register, such as one a Nintendo might have, for example, highest number it can store, and yeah, you get highest numbers in computers, is 255, right? 2 to the 8th minus 1, which is also the number of rupees you can get in The Legend of Zelda max, or the number of missiles you can get in Metroid max. And that's the reason, actually. They'd have like a register or some memory or something. But it wouldn't go above 255 because it's the highest number they'd store. Overflow is what happens if you try to add 1 to that. But we can go over that another time. Just to answer one question to Andrea Ritsu. Is it moved down the same way as the piling we talked about a few... No, that's stacks. That's a little different. This one, we're not telling it to move anything. We're just setting, like... We're just saying, like... It's like, just save it, alright? You stupid processor. Just make these switches 1s. Right here, okay? Alright. What's another fun thing we can do? I don't know x86. Shift left. I think it's SLL. In computer programming languages do have this operation. You will see it sometimes. Yeah, this is Pseudoscorpion. This is x86, but I'm not good at x86 yet, so kind of winging it. I know it was MIPS, it was SLL, but whatever. This says bit shift left. What is a bit shift? It's kind of exactly what you think it is. It shifts everything left. You might say something like, why would I ever want to do that? You jerk. Oh, let me just... So, you can shift bits left and right. Or registers, like the bits in the registers left and right if you want. And there's various reasons to do that. But one of them is, like I said, you could store some values up here in AH or AX. But maybe you could store them up here too in EAX, right? And since you can't reference them with AX and EAX, if you're okay blowing away all this stuff, you could just bit shift right a few times. So if you had like a byte stored over here, a bit rather, and you wanted to get it into a place where you could reference it, and reference it as like 2 or something close to the 0, you could just bit shift and it'll shift everything over. Any bits that get shifted off the quote-unquote edge get clipped and zeroed out forever. And that is exactly what that means, which is going on in chat. It's the left shift operator, not just in C and C++, in very many languages, actually. So it's like, we just did a bit shift by 1. Here is a fun fallout thing of the fun fallout of bit shifting. It just so happens if you shift a binary number to the left like that, it's the same as multiplying it by 2. And if you shift it to the right, it's same as dividing it by 2, although you drop the remainder. So another trick people used to do back in the day when computing was expensive is if you wanted to multiply by 2, instead of multiplying by 2, you just bit shift. Or if you want to multiply by 16, you just bit shift 4 times, and it might be less expensive than actually doing the multiplication. So that's bit shift. I want to talk about a couple bitwise operations, because you're going to see them a lot in assembly. So let's talk about not. The not operator. Now, not the things I'm talking about they're bitwise. They work on bits, but if you do them, well, I'll just show you. So let's just make a random binary number. We'll say we have it stored in a register or something. If you do not on a 0, and in fact, I think it is just assembly, right? Not. Guess what you get outputted? You get a 1, and vice versa, because not 0 is 1 and not 1 is 0, of course. And if you do it on a whole bit string like that, you call not on it, it just flips all the bits. Why do you want to use not? Again, it's like one of those things you can do. You can get creative with certain things. You'll see, I think. But anyway, that's a not operator, right? And yeah, EpiM is kind of right. Missing no was the result of these kinds of antics. Yeah, this is kind of the reason glitches happen, is when weird shit happens to all this stuff and you're pointing at bad locations and things like that. That's the not operator, but I want to talk about and or. These work on 2 bits at a time, rather, really. So I mean 0 1 1 0 1 1. We'll keep these 2 binary strings around. So and will output a single 1 if both bits are 1. Which means here it's doing 0, here it's a 0, here it's a 0, here it's 0. Hooray. Or, quite the opposite, will output a 1 if either bit is a 1. I totally did that wrong. That's a 0. Okay. Basically, this is called inclusive OR, and it means inclusive OR means I will accept both bits as true in the OR. Inclusive OR is like when you go to your friend's house and they ask you and you want coffee and they say, "Do you want milk or sugar?" And you go, "Actually, could I have both?" And that's a totally acceptable answer, right? There's another one called exclusive OR, called XOR, which is it's excluding the AND case, which says only output true if either one bit is 1 or the other bit is 0. Mikey Pro 83 says, "So what's XOR?" with a smiley face, like I don't have an example. XOR is like you go to your friend's house and they say to you, "Do you want coffee or tea?" And you go, "Can I have both?" And that's weird. That's XOR. The other metaphor people more traditionally use is it's when you go to a restaurant and they say, "Do you want soup or the salad?" And you can't have both. I mean, you can. They charge you extra, but it's just an example. So XOR. So you might look at this and go like, "What the hell is?" Oh, I've been told that XOR is the preferred pronunciation. All right, whatever. So. What can you do with shit like this? I mean, why am I even going over it? Well, I'll give you an example. XOR is an assembly initiative. So let's say you did XOR, I don't know, AX, AX, AX. And remember, the way assembly works, the first operand is the assignment. So this is really the equivalent of X equals X XOR X. I don't know if there's an operand for XOR, but whatever. Well, again, these happen on every column. So let's say if you do XOR on yourself, let's see what happens. First column's going to be 0 because they're both 0. Second column's going to be 0. Third column's going to be 0 because they're both 0. You know, it doesn't take both. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So you'll see XOR in assembly as a really fast way of zeroing out a register. This would do the same thing, but I have seen a lot of XOR in there. What do you call it? Why would you ever want to AND something? Well, here's an easy one. Let's say do you want to check if a number is even or odd. Here's an easy way to do it. AND it with 1. If it's an odd number, you'll get a 1 back. Because it's in the 1 position, right? It's 2 to the power of 0. Yeah, that should work. So if you AND these two numbers and you get a 1 back, it's just true. That's like an easy way of telling if something is odd. There's, again, other ways to do it and things like that. The trick with all this shit is that a compiler is going to take something that you write, like if odd count. My AND is wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. If odd count equals true. Actually, no, I could have just said if odd count, but we'll be a little clearer. If odd count is true, I don't know. X equals 5, right? So instead of in assembly, you don't get anything like an odd function or pi or anything. You have to like use weird like little micro commands, kind of like this, and sort of make and assemble the code you're trying to make. Oh, and that's an interesting question. How do you do if? Well, basically the instructions I've shown you so far have a lot to do with manipulating registers and such. We had another good question in there I didn't get to, by the way, which is, can you do arrays in assembly? And you absolutely can. They're not going to look anything like arrays that you think, though. Let's see here. Ponic says, another goofy thing is you can swap register contents by XORing them 3 times. Is that true? Oops. I gotta know that now. Oh well. Alright. The way you're gonna see assembly in the debugger is something like, I don't know. Actually, you're gonna see it more like. And it's going to be listed like that with hexadecimal line numbers, more or less. I might be getting that wrong. 10. I forget. Well, we can take a look in a minute. So the way you do if statements is you're going to have commands like, example, jump. And jump might look something like, this is wrong, but... And when the processor encounters a jump, it'll just jump all the way down to some code over here, 04, that's doing something else. This is what happened to us when we were going through the assembly. There were like jumps around that were making the code jump to another places. If you've ever seen goto aka the computer program directive you should never ever use. Go-tos are jumps, pretty much. Now, that's great, but how do you, like, test on things? Okay. Well, x86 is a little weird, but you have things called, like, CMP. Say X and BX. Where it says, like, compare these, let me know if they're equal, you know? So, if you, when you compare these two registers, if that works out that they are equal, it's going to set a flag somewhere. And the idea is you have these conditional jumps, like JEQ, which means jump if equal. And it'll depend on the last comparison it did, right? So you can also have, in x86, JNE for jump not equal. You can have jump less than if it turns out AX is less than BX. Jump greater than. Jump if it's 0, which is the same as jump equal. And jump not 0. And things like that. So the idea is, if you have this jump like D, I don't know, FF, right? If these two things were not equal, this comps AX and BX, we would make this jump. Otherwise, we would just continue. We would skip the jump and just do what other assembly we encounter next. Assembly's kind of shitty that way, where you have to follow a lot of jumping around and things like that. The way you arrays and stacks and all that shit, I mean, I might say that for another time because it's really late right now, unfortunately. So let's state here. So you can see here, how do I make that window bigger? That'll work. I think you can see that, right? That's all the, these are all the registers. You can see them up top here, the AX, the BX, ECX, EDX. Notice Dead of the Brain, by the way, seems to only be using AX, BX, DX, not really using CX. There's others called the stack pointer, extended stack pointer, the extended base pointer. Kind of forgetting ESI, EDI right now. I looked them up before. This is all new to me. So these are bits of onboard storage the processor has in all times. You can see in the running emulator, even a game like Dead of the Brain, they change really, really frequently. You probably can't actually see the you can't actually see like what they're gonna be. Oh, and that's interesting. Murph says NZ or ZR. I cannot decide. You're absolutely right, actually. Right here. NZ and ZR. You want to know what that is? That's a flag on the processor. When we do the CMP command I showed you, where we compare two registers, here's a little trick. The CMP command is actually a subtraction. That's how it tells if two numbers are equal. It subtracts them. And if the number is 0, that means that the numbers must have been equal, so it'll set that flag to ZR. In any other case, it'll set it to NZ for not 0. When you do a JNZ, like a jump not 0, it checks that flag, whether the C to make the jump or the ZR, or checks ZR for JZ. Excuse me. Whenever you do a jump not 0, it's going to check that flag, and if it's set to not 0, it'll make the jump. Otherwise, it won't. That's the basic if statement. Excuse me. What did I say? Not 0? Oh, non-zero. My bad. Wow, we've been going an hour on this? Again, you know, the reason you need it is because eventually we're going to be getting to a point where we might need to see what happens when the computer or when the PC-98 encounters one of these characters, where it got it from, and things like that. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I hated assembly in college. I never had to do anything with it. I didn't hate it, but like I just didn't get it. ROMHack projects are really kind of cool. I do wish schools would use them because I think they're visually more interesting to do this stuff. So yeah, non-zero is what's used in other technical contexts. It's probably right. Game Kiwi. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's hard to like. I kind of did this whole thing from the seat of my pants. You know, I didn't really plan it out or anything or whatever. So I don't know. I hope it's kind of useful. If you want to, we can talk about how you do next time. That is next time, like how you do negative numbers in binary, overflow, all that fun stuff. Let's see here. Yeah. So I don't know. I hope you had fun. If this is a bit over your head, I think maybe if we do get into breakpoints like we did last time and actually stepping through assembly, yeah, fuck it. Let's do this right now. Oh, floats are... I saw someone say floats are fun. I'm like, yeah, I don't even touch those. I'm not even going to touch those. I really should go to bed, but just real quick. Is it 74F54? Oops. X bytes. Oh, right. Changed it. Hey. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, here's text. 4DA06H in memory. We'll go there. 4DA06. Oh, 230 header, right? Here's the beginning of the file. Well, let me go back to calculator. 48. Yeah, here it is. It's like right about here. Yep. Alright, let's put a memory breakpoint there. Right? And then we'll reload save state. I think I messed that up. Oh, next dialog box. Yep, okay. So we did a breakpoint on memory. The game is halted execution. And we are going to look at disassembly. So let me quickly switch to that window. This is assembly. Right now. I'm going to run it once. Okay. So what it's basically doing at this point, it's moving SI into AX. You're probably like, what the hell is SI? I'll show you in one moment. Sorry. SI is this, 9104. It's going to move that bracket in assembly in... Oh, wait. Shit. There it is, sorry. Okay, see the ESI right here? I lost my ability to draw. Hold on. It's weird. Why can't I draw this anymore? Alright, I guess I don't need to. It's getting late. Alright. So, first line, that highlighted line is going to move the memory, something at memory pointed to by SI, which is 9104, into AX. Bottom half. That's currently A371, right? So hit F7 to step over. It goes to the next line. It becomes 283B, which looks a lot like our control code. We have exchange AL and AH. So watch 23BA if you can see it. And it becomes BA23. We're going to increment SI, which is the pointer to our text. Actually, yeah, now we're moving down the text. We're going to compare AX to FFFF. It's not equal to that. We're going to jump on 0. They're not equal, so I don't think we're going to jump. Now we're going to check it against FFFE. That's interesting. We're going to jump if they're 0. It's not. Now we're going to check AH to A0. What's A0? Oh. Okay. So A0 looks like a control code. Jump back to DE14. Didn't jump. We're going to compare AH to A5. It's not that. That's interesting that, like, there's these control codes that we never saw. Oh, I did jump. Now I'm going to call EC3. Step into that. I think I stepped into that. Jump back. Compare upper high to 21. So this is where it was doing the thing like it's checking if it's 83, and if so, it'll print katakana or what have you. And this is basically, this is debugging hex and assembly and registers, and I hope it kind of made some sort of sense, but I gotta call it. So take it easy, everybody. Later.